Welcome to Bad First Impression, the podcast about movies and where we meet them. I'm Devin Warner, and every week me and a guest go to a film screening here in New York and discuss how that impression how that experience affected our impression of the show. I'm still nailing down like my script for my premise here. This week I have with me the director of the Unnamed Footage Fest, Madeleine Koestner. UFF 7.
Yes, we are on our 7th year.
It will be. This is going to come out, I think, the Monday before.
That's perfect.
So yours starts on the March 26th, right?
Yes, our first event is March 26th, and then we go all the way through the weekend through March 31st.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry. I think the week prior. Okay, so never mind. I'm sorry. I'm trying to game out exactly when this comes out in relation to your guys's. But yeah, so next weekend for you, the listener or viewer, UFF 7 starts this weekend, so you can get tickets to that already now, right? Mm-hmm. Those are still on sale?
Yes. I mean, actually, badges are getting scarce.
Okay.
We do like a special badge. It's a VHS box, and we'll like put a whole bunch of like stickers and pins and stuff in it. So when you buy a badge, you just get this like collectible box. And like we have people who have been coming since year one, and they've got like a line of them.
Like a lineup of them.
Yeah. So if there are badges left, I highly recommend buying one.
Yeah, perfect. So act fast on that. We'll make sure that we put the link in the episode description so that if they're still available, people can grab them. But today we are talking about a very different type of movie from anything we've covered on this show before. You suggested it to me, and I had no idea what it was whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like I misinterpreted the Bad First Impression title.
You wanted to make a bad first impression on me by suggesting something.
That was the move. I made a terrible impression by suggesting this film.
I like read enough of a synopsis about like this movie and the director to not be put off by it. This is certainly the type of movie that if you suggested it to a stranger,
yes,
they would maybe be off.
It's a bad idea.
Yes.
You should know someone very well
before you're like, let's go see
Singapore Sling.
Before we go see Singapore Sling.
Yeah.
So we'll get into describing the weird machination. Cause like I was actually sitting down, I was like, I should have a plot description available while we're sitting here. And I went to do it. And I was like, this will be pretty simple. And I was like, this is weirdly complex.
Yeah.
But you're mostly not actually explaining what happens in the body of the movie. You're like, well, so it starts with this guy driving up on these two women digging a hole. Well, okay, but actually like, so you have to like explain 3 flashbacks that are going to happen immediately after that scene, actually.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this on our way in here. If just like genre classification, how do you describe this movie?
It is very complicated, especially because I feel like there's like 2 ways you can look at this film. So like one is it's like a postmodern neo-noir that is, commentary on like filmmaking and the knowledge of film and what we bring to it when we watch a movie. But then the other is it's a gross out erotica. We were just like dropping words before trying to figure out what to call it.
It's just I was just like saying stuff where I'm like, if I just like, is it a pastiche? I'm like, let's just see how it feels to like say that word out loud in relation to this movie.
Which that is kind of how you describe the movie.
You're just like,
I'm going to say a word and see if it fits.
Yeah, it's very freeform jazz.
Yes.
And you're like, I hope I'm getting close to it. But so we saw this at the Roxy Cinema, which is we've done one episode at that theater here before. My first episode, they were showing Little Man as part of a Wayans Brothers retrospective.
Hell yeah!
Because I was like, when is anybody ever going to screen Little Man again?
Probably in no time soon.
No. But it's this wonderful little like one screen theater in the basement of the Roxy Hotel. It's got kind of a like. Well, it's actually got kind of like a jazz club feel because it's literally right next to a jazz club. But this is a reasonably well-attended screening, like in terms of like it wasn't a full audience.
Yeah, like it wasn't sold out. It was also a screening that was added. So they originally showed the program that we saw on Valentine's Day, and I believe that was sold out. So they added a second.
That's what we went to,
and that's what we went to.
Yeah.
So we were with like
people,
the dregs.
Yeah, and
we were them.
Like, who had heard about a cool thing and wanted to go to. I assume also because as is always the case, this was introed by Cathode Cinema.
Yes,
who I actually want to talk about. They showed a pre-show clip that was like somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes.
Yes. So that was done by 1-800-HOT-DUCK, who is a kind of like found footage, but not the kind that I'm involved with found footage horror. She does found footage in terms of like digging up old VHS tapes, finding like weird European stuff on YouTube, and then cutting it all together. So it was about a half-hour long program by 1-800-HOT-DUCK.
Okay.
Is awesome.
I couldn't find the playlist because I was like, I kind of wanted to list the things in there.
Yeah.
And I can't, to be totally honest, they start to blend together in a way that kind of makes you feel a little insane.
Yes.
So I can't super differentiate all the ones that happen there. The clip that like, you like turned to me after this one clip. There's no other way to describe it. It's like a bunch of extreme close-ups of a woman's vagina as she puts leeches on it and inserts
a centipede.
Yes, the centipede was the really upsetting one. And you like leaned into me like, I feel like this is illegal. I should be like they're gonna like open up the door and like, this is a sting. You guys are all going to jail for coming to this. This is completely ridiculous.
It did feel like that.
It felt really scuzzy.
And especially because it felt like a student film or something. Like it didn't have a high production value. It was like scuzzy in a way that implied an amateurish quality.
Which is weird for how like much really specific equipment they had available to them and specific insects in that one specific case.
Yes.
And I was like, you guys, this isn't like the worst quality I've ever seen. You maybe should have put a little bit of that budget into the camera instead of like BDSM gear.
Yeah.
There's that. And then there's one where it might even be the same clip, just like later in it. There's a man who is taking what looks to be like a long pin, like a rod, and repeatedly like poking holes in his own penis.
Yes, that was the same.
It was the same clip, just like later in it.
I do like that this was the last clip in that pre-show, and neither of us can remember anything from before it.
Oh, you know what? I just remembered there's a woman on an exercise bike with like
with enormous breasts,
with breasts just that I would say like would maybe qualify for her for disability.
Yeah,
like they're huge.
They were, like what's the thing when you fall off a boat and you're in like an air thing?
Like the flotation devices?
Yeah, they looked like that.
It's so bizarre because it's presented so like clinically.
Yes. Well, it seemed to be an ad for her as an exotic dancer.
Oh, okay.
So I got the impression it was sort of like a hire me. Like,
because I was like, it's at the very least like it's implying pornography, just none of the way it is shot is pornographic at all.
No,
it's like it's documentary.
It's almost like a resume. Like
yes. But she she's in fantastic shape for having like something that would be that much impediment to most people's basic motor ability. Like, I
mean, when it first started, I thought they were fake. Like I don't mean like they were fake as in they were fake breasts. I thought she was wearing like a fake,
like the clump style.
Exactly. Like a drag
they
queen.
They do look that
plate.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And then the more she moved, the more I'm like, no, those are 100% attached to her body.
I only remembered that one as we were saying, because I was like, you're right. It's like 20 to 25 minutes prior to the genital mutilation.
Yeah.
I have to remember something. And I remember that because that felt like it was like 15 minutes of it. It was the longest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Totally ridiculous. I feel like the point of this is to like have you feeling it's almost intending to make you desensitized before you watch the movie going in.
Did kind of feel that way.
Because I was like,
once we saw that, Singapore Sling was a little easier to digest.
Yeah, there's not many moments. Well, there's one moment at a dinner table, I think, that like I personally, like for sensory reasons, had a really difficult time sitting through.
Yes.
Other than that, there's nothing in there that like really disturbs me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of, but like, because it's got we have to go back to a little bit to like talk about genre here, because the movie, the way we're describing it, you wouldn't think it has a comedic tone, but the thing is that the most consistent thing about it might be that it's comedic.
It's very funny. And it's especially funny if you have a twisted sense of humor. So it's like very, very, very dark comedy. And most of that is, I think, from the performances.
Oh yeah.
Because every character, and there's only three characters in this entire film. They all act like they're in an entirely different movie.
Yeah. They're very, I gotta bring up the there are three characters. You're right. Like not even any like background.
Nope.
Nothing. There are flashbacks in this, and there's nothing else. There actually is one other character who is visually represented on screen, but only through
the
like
father.
what I assume was like a mannequin. So
well, I think it's a mummy. He's just like what I mean fully wrapped like a mummy, but that might not be a person.
I don't think there's an actor in that. So I guess as we describe the characters, we should probably like do like a really basic rundown so that because this is, I think, a movie not a lot of people have seen. I have found it. This movie and all the other features, and I think some of the shorts by the director Nikos Nikolaidis are available in like fairly decent quality, subbed in English on YouTube right now.
Yeah, and I actually think that account is somehow linked to like his estate.
Yeah, I think that you can watch that fairly guilt-free.
Yeah.
But I was like I didn't have time to like sit down and watch any of the other features, but I was like scrubbing through. I was like, oh, these are like totally decent. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's free on YouTube, so it is what it is.
What I've heard is that Singapore Sling is the most extreme of his films.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, this is the tone that he works in.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like kind of it's not. To call it satirical almost feels like I'm reducing it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think he's trying to go beyond just simply commenting on other things through showing an absurd version of them.
Yes. I mean, I think like it is a work of postmodernism.
Yes.
Like I do think it's very much about like almost so directly depicting, qualities of cinema that normally would be metaphors.
Yeah. That was actually like an element of it that I was intrigued when you said earlier. Would you mind like explaining an example of that?
Okay, so all right, let's sit. I am not a film noir expert by any means. In fact, I've watched like almost none. But the like main reference in this film is a Otto Preminger film called Laura from I think 1944 around then. And I have not seen it, but I know that this film is completely riffing on that story. Yeah. So Laura is about a woman named Laura who is dead and the detective who falls in love with her while trying to solve her murder, which is basically the plot of Singapore Sling.
Yes. I think it's like so implied that the main character who's a detective who is unnamed except for as some plot goes on, the other characters find a recipe for
the drink?
A cocktail, the Singapore Sling. Do you know what's in a Singapore Sling?
I do. I actually am a huge fan of that cocktail.
Okay, what's in it?
And if you want to have an excellent Singapore Sling, I recommend going to a Singaporean bar called Singlish.
Okay.
In, it's Lower Manhattan somewhere.
Okay.
And they give you a deconstructed one where you combine all the elements in a glass. And so, all right, your base spirit is going to be gin.
Okay.
And then you're going to have a cherry heering, which is, it's basically cherry brandy. Then you've got bitters, orange juice, pineapple juice. And I think that's the base. Okay. Like, I think that's your basic Singapore Sling recipe.
That sounds very refreshing.
It's very good because it's a little bit fruity, but it's boozy.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're having like a really, yeah. Especially because of like the gin and the brandy in it. It's just an excellent cocktail, and I have been drinking them recently because of this movie.
What was your first exposure to the term Singapore Sling? Was it through the drink or through the movie?
It was through the movie.
It was through the movie
because I saw this film in college, probably around like 18 or 19 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did not, it's an old fashioned cocktail. Like it's not an old fashioned, but it's an old cocktail.
Yes. Yes.
I also like an old fashioned.
Yeah. Okay.
But okay. So film noir, right?
Yes.
So first we have film noir from like the 40s. And then later on we get a resurgence of the film noir style called neo-noir. And that's when we get like the remake of Breathless. Like American Gigolo is neo-noir, Live and Die in LA, which is one of my favorite films of all time. Okay. And I really like neo-noir. So neo-noir is basically noir elements, but with a real 80s kind of aesthetic. And then we get neon noir, that's really where the 80s aesthetic comes in. So neo-noir is just, they're redoing noir. Then it goes to the 80s. We get neon noir.
Just like what, like Blade Runner?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then as we get into the 2000s, which this is why it's very interesting that Singapore Sling really like reads as one of these movies, we get postmodern neo-noir. And that is going to be like your Inherent Vice, I'm trying to think of other good examples. A Blue Velvet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of reacting to these are the tenets of what being a noir movie
exactly,
is.
where it's more deconstructing the film than it is making the film, if that makes sense. Making the style, the genre.
Yes.
Yeah. So and what's I think is really cool about Singapore Sling is it is falling into two genres that really came into popularity in the 2000s, which is this postmodern neo-noir and also, okay, I'm going to remember. It is Greek weird wave cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I encountered the term.
Yes.
Only because I was, I had found this old essay that somebody had written, I think, talking about the influence of Nikos Nikolaidis on Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yes. But have you ever found Lanthimos talking about Singapore Sling?
I could not find
any
examples.
To the point at which I'm not sure that it did influence him.
This movie has a shared collaborator that I know Yorgos Lanthimos has worked with. In this movie, the character who plays the mother is, or the actress is Michelle Valley.
And she's in Dogtooth.
She's in Dogtooth playing a character also named Mother.
Okay, so there's no way that's a coincidence.
No, it has to be at the very least like homage.
Yeah.
Because that movie structurally in terms of like, it's about an abusive set of parents who kind of shelter their children from the world and establish their own set of internal rules within the house to further enable their abuse.
Yeah.
Where she is playing the same named character in the same exact type of dynamic.
Yeah.
That I refuse to believe that's
There's
not intentional.
no way. Yeah. That has to be. Okay. So we need to find Lanthimos talking about Singapore Sling.
I know. I couldn't find
I found one interview where the interviewer asks him about it. And he just says yes, and they move on. Like he doesn't talk about.
You don't want to hear
at
that guy
all.
talk about this movie.
I want to hear that guy talk about this movie so
crazy.
bad.
That's completely nuts.
Yeah.
There's no like sound clip of it whatsoever.
Yeah. But so I feel like Yorgos Lanthimos is the like international example of weird Greek cinema.
Yes.
Like,
but he's kind of the next generation after Nikolaidis.
Yes. But that movement is sort of considered to start with Dogtooth and with like the Greek financial crisis, like in 2009.
Because that's kind of the first one that really crosses over in a meaningful commercial way.
And I saw Dogtooth at the Toronto International Film Festival. It was like the North American premiere of it.
Yeah.
And like no one knew what it was.
It's an upsetting movie.
Oh man. It's also one of the funniest movies ever made, I think.
I watched it within the last time, for the first time within the last year.
Yeah.
I saw it, Metrograph was showing it, so I was like, I'll go see this with an audience. I know it's this crazy weird thing. I'll tell you what, I was pretty upset by it. I didn't find myself laughing a lot. I wonder if on a rewatch,
you got to rewatch it.
I would maybe. I'll tell you what, I didn't walk out of that movie. I liked it, but I didn't walk out of the movie being like, let's play it back again. Like I wasn't ready to throw it on again. I was going to give it a little bit of space.
Yeah.
But I'll watch it again, like hoping I can. I don't know. There's some like deceptions in there that I remember laughing at. But I don't remember like. I don't know. It doesn't even feel as comedic as some of like Lanthimos' later works.
I think that the comedy is there in his later works, but he made them a little more accessible to an American audience.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, especially as he starts working in the English language. I think I've seen every one of his movies.
I have not.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, I haven't. I haven't seen Poor Things. What a statement.
I saw Poor Things a little bit earlier than everybody else. I saw it at the New York Film Festival.
That's sick. Yeah.
It's a great movie. It is funny to think of the guy who's like made these types of movies go on to receive. It made $100 million in America.
It's wild.
And won Best Actress.
Like nominated for Academy Awards.
Yeah, and
we're talking about like Singapore Sling eventually leading to this.
Yes, like, as legitimized as this thing could possibly be, because I kind of compare the actress who plays the daughter. I guess let's forget about the plot, because I honestly think trying to go through it might actually confuse people more than it's like all I'll say is this is very easy. This is a very easy movie to find, which is not always the case for movies that kind of get, and also this was the screening was part of a 4K restoration.
Yeah, so
which
it was
means
very.
it should be available in higher
think
quality.
it's coming out. I don't know if it is yet. There is a Synapse release from like 2006, and that's how I saw it. Like I saw it when it first came out. But yeah, it's on YouTube. Like nobody's been paying attention. So this is a movie that got like bootleg traded before, like there were kind of like boutique DVD labels. Yeah. So there were bootlegs of this being traded, and like it has a real reputation in like the disturbing and underground cinema, like circles.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because it doesn't have like the critical reputation. Like this is a movie that weirdos loved and critics were like, gross. So,
I mean, it's a pretty gross movie.
Yeah.
It is about a guy who, in like the broadest strokes possible, is looking for his girlfriend, gets kidnapped by this incestuous mother-daughter pair, sexually abused and tortured, and then eventually is involved in killing both of them and himself.
Yes.
That's like the really broad thing.
It's like Grey Gardens, like the house and the, mother-daughter. It looks like Grey Gardens, but it's black and white. It is a film noir film, but then it's also got elements of like Thundercrack. Do you know that film?
I don't know. I've never heard that.
So
okay. I thought you were saying Thundercrack was a genre. And I was
no,
like, what is
Thundercrack is
I don't
a
know,
movie.
But that's exciting.
I wish that was a genre.
Yeah.
It should be a genre.
What's Thundercrack?
Thundercrack is a 2.5 hour long pornographic film from 1975 written by George Kuchar. Okay. And the Kuchar brothers are like real, like underground, like, art types who made like crazy, crazy movies. Like back in the 70s. And like it's like early kind of John Waters vibes.
Okay.
But Thundercrack is black and white, looks like it was made, in the 50s.
Yeah.
But is actually just like the most bizarre porn you've ever seen.
Yeah. It's funny. Singapore Sling is kind of a movie that, because it has so much depiction of like explicit nudity.
Yes.
You start to wonder, I'm like, at what point does this cross over into being pornography?
Yeah.
Like I know that like intent, I think, is ultimately the decider there.
Yeah, which I think is why I use erotica like more with it.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Well, is this movie erotic?
I mean, it kind of has to be.
I would almost say that this is like neo erotica, in that, in that it is postmodern erotica, and that it is more concerned with addressing why we find erotica sexy than actually doing anything sexy at all.
Yeah, but it is also like so much kink.
Yes.
Like you've got bondage, you've got like piss play, like
there's a lot of piss play.
There's a lot of piss and vomit in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, which God, it's a lot.
Yeah, I guess like these are warnings for like if you're somebody who just can't sit through that.
Yeah,
I guess maybe
if you don't like piss play, this might not be for you.
And if you watch Singapore Sling, it means you like piss play.
Sorry,
guys. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
We're all guilty.
Yeah. It's very weirdly structured because it basically opens with the characters running into each other, followed by, I feel like
he's been fired. So he lost his job because he was so obsessed with finding this woman.
Laura.
Yes.
Is the woman
so the
he's
movie
looking
actually
for.
opens with the mother and daughter both wearing these trench coats in the rain, digging a grave. And the trench coats keep being blown open, and they're wearing like sexy lace lingerie, like garters, just like layered.
Like panties.
Yeah. And so the trench coats keep blowing open, and they're just dressed in this weird, like their boobs are hanging out. Like it's kind of great. Honestly, this movie is beautiful. The black and white is really so rich. It's shot so gorgeously, and they are both very attractive.
Oh yeah.
But
so
then
you're totally off base for what you're going to be seeing within the next 10 to 15 minutes. And speaking of within the next 10 to 15 minutes, I do want to bring up something that happened during the presentation of this movie. So the movie starts with we know it's a Greek movie, so it starts with titles in Greek, so we're like all good there. And then it's kind of like a long sequence of the two of them digging a hole, and there's no dialogue there, so we're like, we're good. And then we cut to Singapore Sling, the character, who starts doing this kind of like long, kind of like soft focus
It's like,
monologue.
It's a film noir, like narration where it's just his point of view and his feelings and his like thoughts about women.
It is kind of like similar, like, do you know, like the opening pages of Watchmen?
Yes.
Where he's doing like that. It's almost self-parodic.
Yeah.
But we're watching this and it's happening in Greek. And we're sitting there for like, I really feel like a good 5 to 10 minutes.
And there were no subtitles.
There's no subtitles.
Yeah.
So they did forget to run subtitles when they initially started it. It's fine because like the vibe of the theater was pretty good. Everybody laughed. Nobody was upset about it. They rolled it back to when dialogue started.
Yeah. Like
so
I was waiting to see if somebody would go out.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was supposed to have subtitles.
Always love a good.
So I'm like looking
mess-up.
and I'm like, is anyone going to run out? Is it going to have to be me? Like, I don't want to get up, but I'll do it if I have to. And I see someone run out, and moments later, the movie started over with subtitles.
Yes.
Although it's not all in Greek. It switches back and forth between Greek and English based on who is speaking. The detective only speaks Greek.
The daughter, I feel like, is mostly in English.
And then the mother switches between French and English.
Yes.
So all three characters are speaking different languages.
And the mother is speaking French to people who can't understand her.
Yes. And sometimes the French is not subtitled.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I think is intentional.
You have to be dialed into this thing.
Yeah.
It's very layered and complex. And it's mostly a movie about, at least the way I read it anyway, it was like, the interplay of the way that like dynamics change within a power structure when you introduce a new element to it.
Yeah, definitely.
But he finds out, Singapore Sling finds out that the girl he's going after was actually recently murdered by these two women who were burying her in the front yard.
Yeah.
Like, or no, I'm sorry.
That's their chauffeur.
They were burying the chauffeur.
Which I love. I just think that's such a charming way to start it. It's these two women almost naked burying their chauffeur who they just murdered.
Yes.
Like, who was your chauffeur? Like, what? I love it.
But you find out that like this is like their thing. They go do it. And you find this out through the reason why he is drawn into the house in the first place is because Laura and the daughter have a very strong physical resemblance. They're played by the same actors.
Yes.
We find out like through this really long protracted flashback that they killed Laura.
Yeah.
And he kind of pieces together. I think he sees something of hers in the house afterwards.
Her earrings, I believe.
Yes.
And then she starts to wear the earrings.
Yes. And he sees around the kitchen. They've basically decorated the kitchen with the viscera left over from her body.
Yes.
So it's a fairly fresh kill.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I actually think it's that.
Or is that the
that is a
chauffeur's?
flashback. I believe that's the chauffeur.
Oh, okay.
So
because I think
they killed Laura, and I think they killed her a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been their first kill together. And
I thought the father was the first, or was he encouraging them to do kills prior?
He was killing and they were just eating because they're also cannibals. Cool. So he was killing and then he disappears and they start doing the killing.
I thought it's that they killed him.
That is unclear because daughter seems to believe that he's still alive as a mummy in the attic.
Yes.
But he died somehow. It's not clear how. I believe.
These are the like finicky details that it's almost
confusing.
like
it's
almost like do I need to 100% get an explicit answer?
No, and I do
another?
think that actually is the truth. Is they're confusing, but they're also unnecessary. Like you don't really have to fully.
It's there if
like
you
it's
want
more important to understand that father took her virginity when she was 11 years old. Than it is to understand what happened to father, which is depicted with him as a mummy and her as an adult woman, and she tells the story of it while they act it out. And then the other thing that's interesting about Laura is her murder becomes a game that they reenact together.
Yes.
So,
that they kind of reenact with each of their like incoming victims.
No, it's a game they play on their own. So mother and daughter play this game.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Where
it's like reenactment.
Daughter shows up as Laura and, is, coming to interview to be a secretary. And then, mother fucks her with a giant strap on.
Yes. Which is like,
can I say that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Which is with That is, I think there's that flashback.
No, that's not a flashback. That's a game.
I mean, like when you see Laura's murder, like you see that.
Yes. You see Laura's murder, but you don't see Laura's interactions with them. You just see Laura kind of get killed on the side.
Yeah.
Like very
I'm sorry,
briefly.
I thought you saw that. I thought that was the first time we saw it.
It's very confusing. And I think I only, because I've seen the movie multiple times, like I figured out that you don't really see Laura. You just see her get her throat slit, and that's the only time you see her.
So every time you think that's just the daughter pretending to be Laura.
Yes.
Okay. That actually simplifies it.
It does.
Like that actually like makes it an easier thing to watch.
Yeah.
But that game is...
They play a lot of games.
Yes. Eventually, after like kind of like a long middle that is basically just them fucking with Singapore Sling over and over again.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a really protracted, very sensorily disgusting like dinner scene.
Yeah.
Where they're like chewing as irritatingly as possible.
And whatever they're eating looks just rotted.
Just horrible.
So
like they're
gross.
eating it out of like mussel shells and stuff. It's really gross.
With their hands, no utensils, or just shoveling food into their mouths, and it's looks
shoving
like
it in his mouth.
And it's like a mix of dessert and rancid meat. Like it is vile.
It's genuinely hard.
And
I
gotta say, I love cinema. Like,
I know.
It is like, I love gross like food stuff in movies.
I have a hard, I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's kind of my one little avenue of horror that I have a really hard time being like, I loved it. I'm just like, that was incredibly well done. I
almost think I like gross out film more than I like horror at the end of the day. Like, have you ever seen Le Grand Buffet?
No, I haven't.
So like that's one that like has a lot of like kind of disgusting decadent eating. Daisies also has some great eating in it. Like I could program a festival of
disgusting eating.
Yeah. In film.
I feel like you have a hard time selling concessions.
I 100% would. No one would want anything. People would want like ginger tea. Like that would be the only thing.
I need something that will settle my stomach, my preferably empty stomach as I sit through this. But it's a long series of stuff like that just ends with eventually, like I said, that it's mostly about like changing dynamics after you introduce this new guy. The mother kind of starts to feel like she's less desirable because of there's a new thing introduced. The daughter kind of starts to feel like she wants to kind of have freedom from the existing dynamic, and Singapore Sling kind of just looks like he's going insane.
I mean, he's dying of thirst.
Yeah. He's just like he's literally just kind of sitting there slowly deteriorating in all senses.
He just keeps begging for water, and you can see how dry his lips are, and they're like monologuing to him. She's like telling these stories, and she's like, "Shh, be quiet." And he's like, "Water." Like for like half the movie.
That's most of what he's doing.
I love it. I love that they set him up as the main character,
and then
he shows up. He's the first voice you hear.
He's set dressing,
and then he just becomes like a prop while they just go nuts with their weird like sadomasochistic games. And
I gotta say, all the performances here are pretty impressive.
Yes,
they're like. I kind of wanted to compare. I'm sorry, I have to look up her name again. The daughter is Meredith Harold.
Yes, who I looked up, and it doesn't seem like she's even an actress.
Not really. She did. I like on Letterboxd of all places, because I was like, where can I find bios of her?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't really have much of an IMDb. Her Wikipedia is like very bare bones. She's in this. She's in one other Nikolaidis film, and like I think it was on Letterboxd where it was like, last we heard of her, she moved to the US in 2011. I'm like, that's it's like this other Nikolaidis movie, and that's her third credit is moving to the US. And I assume she's just a private citizen, does not want to be bothered.
I mean, I kind of get the impression that she just like fell in with him. Because like he really seemed to be like a primarily an artist. Like I don't think he was making movies to like be in theaters and entertain people. I think he was making art. Yeah. And I get the impression that she just kind of fell in with him because the performance she gives is so unbelievable.
It's like very unhinged.
Yeah.
And it's totally it is completely shameless.
Yes, and fully committed to everything she is doing, committed to the voice she is using, committed to the weird tics that this character has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's like, and she's doing a lot of the same things repetitively.
Yes.
Which means that when you get to see her watch or say or do something, you're like, I'm seeing her do the same thing in the slightly different ways that you do as you're like slowly doing it.
Yeah.
Like the way that she like overemphasizes the G in the middle of Singapore Sling is like, after a while, it's almost hypnotic because she just is like monologuing to him and saying his name at the beginning of every single statement that she's making to him.
Yes.
It's totally ridiculous. I was thinking of it in the context of Emma Stone in Poor Things, where like that's more of like a fish out of water thing.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about like mainstream viability and how that movie has kind of against all odds become like a big mainstream success.
Yeah.
Got as much validation as a movie like that maybe has ever really gotten. And I just am like, I kind of compare, I'm like, it's funny that people will call that audacious. And I like that performance and I like that movie. She is basically just like kind of playing like an alien, you know, like it's really any kind of like fish out of water comedy.
Yeah.
This is not that at all.
No.
She is not really she'll be presented with an idea from the outside world and then just doesn't really react to it. She just kind of moves on with doing things the insane way that she's been kind of like abused into doing them.
Yes.
It's totally nuts.
Yes. And it's also like very unclear. Like, I mean, I imagine she's actually their daughter. But
I always am like, if you tell me something like that, I always just like buy it.
Yeah.
And like in that way, I'm like, I can be a little gullible.
Yeah.
Because someone will tell me later about the like, that was actually subtext. Like, or they were just saying that. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll just be a little dumb in how I watch this. You know, but I hadn't considered the idea that like she just called herself the daughter.
I mean, for a good chunk of that movie, I always consider that she's actually Laura and that she's just been brainwashed. But I by the end, it is proven that she is not.
Yeah.
But I assume that she is actually their daughter and they've just got like a weird inbred family.
Yeah. I think because I had seen Dogtooth relatively recently, I was just like, well, these things happen. I don't know what I'm seeing it in movies all the time. I know that these setups, look, I've heard about it I think it was on the news. I heard about it.
Have you ever seen Bad Boy Bubby?
I've never seen Bad Boy Bubby.
You should look that movie up.
Okay. I'll look up Bad Boy Bubby.
If you want to watch more about that exact topic.
Maybe I'll space it out a little bit from Dogtooth.
You might want to,
you
might want to like take a minute.
I don't want to OD on this.
Watch some like fun stuff first.
Yeah. I'll put it in between the two Big Mama's House movies. That's perfect.
That's right.
That'd be a great
Actually,
triple.
It weirdly fits very well there. I hope somebody listening to this right now understands why. Does that.
Yeah. Like, as in has the pre-existing knowledge to understand.
Of why Bad Boy Bubby and Big Mama's House kind of fit together. Yeah.
But I wanted to go back to like the game they play reenacting Laura's murder.
Yes.
Because it plays into, like I said, the mother's kind of feeling left out of the dynamic. It eventually leads to the other two of them murdering her.
Yes.
And then Singapore Sling, who at this point is just not a guy anymore. He's totally just,
he looks like a ghost.
Yeah, she's
put all this crazy makeup on. Like she's dressed him as
the mother so that he can do her part in the reenactment. And what he does, because you find out that like he's got something left, in the chamber at this point. When they go to play the game where she comes in as Laura and he's about to go at her with the strap on, he's replaced it with a knife.
With I think it's Daddy's big knife.
Yes, thank you.
I believe is the exact phrasing they use to describe that, because it's part of the story is at some point Daddy's big knife disappears and you don't know which character has it.
Yeah. I thought it was that, I don't know. Somebody hides it. I thought it was like definitely that he hid it.
Yes, it was him.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's been hiding it until this moment.
And I gotta be honest with you, this might be the most creative kill I've seen in a movie where the knife was the weapon.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, you can't see me reenact it, but he holds her in front of him, like around the waist, and as if he's like having sex with her from behind, pulls her up and down.
Yeah, it is very upsetting.
And he stabs her in the butt a bunch of times.
It honestly makes me, like, that is the scene that upsets me. Like, that made me nauseous because it's such a depiction of like of sexual assault in a way.
It immediately like brings to mind the kill from Seven.
Yes.
Where you're just like, I can't, like, and that's like, That's the most
Is
upsetting
it
thing.
depicted in 7? Like, do you see?
You don't see it. You
Okay.
see the aftermath.
Yeah, because I didn't remember.
You see the rig.
They depict it in Singapore Sling. You see, like, everything, and then she's covered in blood,
and she's still like, I don't think she's totally naked. She's probably wearing some insane
she's got
Elizabethan
like a little
thing on the top.
that's
a
bunch of garter belts.
The space between her boobs and her genital area is covered. Don't worry. There's no midriff. There's very little midriff in this movie.
The costume design in this film is bonkers.
It's crazy to me. They're like, well, the costume designer needs something to do. We're like, well, the whole point of the movie is that stuff is. You can cover the midriff. We'll let you do that. How about that? And there'll be lots of flowing silk. How about that?
Yeah, and lace, silk and lace. That's it.
And I feel like there's a lot of like half gloves.
Yes, a lot of like little lacy gloves.
Food moment.
The gloves.
Eating with gloves is such a perverse.
Oh no, that is gross. I don't
so
like that.
Nasty. They're fingerless gloves, and I'm like, that is as bad. That's so terrible. Don't eat with gloves on.
You take the gloves off. If you're doing anything, you take the gloves off. Wear them as fashion, but that's it.
But he kills her, and then she pulls a gun from nearby, shoots him, and then he literally crawls into a grave.
Yes.
That's the end of the picture.
It's great. He says, he's like, I'm done. Bye. And then he crawls and he buries himself in the grave he's been digging for the last few days.
Yes. I would also be done. But that's Singapore Sling.
Yeah. I mean, it ends like a film noir film. Like the arc is kind of perfect.
And I think I was going to say, that's kind of, you talk about what you want to call it, satire, pastiche, homage, like any version of something that is imitating a well-known format of something. Yeah. The best ones do adhere to that format at the end of it. And for as like kind of unstructured as the middle of this movie is, it is crazy to get there. And I'm like, narratively, that makes sense.
People are like, film noir is known for being like kind of sexy. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that is like more like a Freudian psychoanalysis, sort of like the way that like weapons are, phallic and femme fatales are horny. I
didn't see that symbolism.
Not in this movie, because they just used phalluses instead. Oh, and Daddy's big knife.
Daddy's big knife. Was Daddy's big knife a metaphor for a penis?
Probably.
Really?
Maybe. That's hard to say.
That's a read. I don't know.
This is not a movie that deals with subtlety.
I do think if you Googled Daddy's big knife, you would get a penis.
You probably would.
I think a penis is what would come up.
I think you would get like a dildo that like has it on the packaging. Like, it's in a cardboard box that has Daddy's big knife, like written in like bubbly text.
Oh, yeah.
But it is like they took all of the like Freudian stuff from film noir and they're like, let's do it for real. Like, let's just like, she vomits on him. She actually vomits on him. Like, she doesn't just talk. Like, she doesn't.
No. Like, she it's disgusting.
It is disgusting. Yeah.
But that's Singapore Sling. I feel bad for anybody for whom I spoiled it because I think it's a wild ride.
I honestly feel that even if you listen to all this,
I don't think it's going to ruin the watch experience.
No, I think it will be as shocking, even if you know some of what you expect.
Because what we're describing is, I'm like, what's going to be in people's mind's eye is so different from what actually ends up making it on screen.
Also how beautiful the film is.
It is a gorgeously shot film.
You cannot imagine how beautifully something that is the thing we just described could possibly be.
Yeah. And I love that juxtaposition between how provocatively unsettling
and grotesque,
like what is actually in the frame is on.
Yeah.
But that's about all the time we have to discuss it. I want to end it on the same question that I end everything on.
Okay.
Is what movie, if we see it screening somewhere, what's something that would be a rarity that like is not likely to get screened, but if we see it we have to absolutely make sure we go and do an episode on it.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's The Empty Man.
It's The Empty Man.
Yeah. Have you seen The Empty Man?
I love The Empty Man.
Dude, it's The Empty Man.
Great. It's I think it did technically receive, this is a 2020 movie, so it got memory hold for everybody.
Yeah, it got, so Disney had just purchased 21st Century and they were going through like dumping all the movies that had just been completed.
Yeah.
And so they dumped it in theaters in the summer of 2020.
It was literally, I think it's like a June or July release.
Yeah. Like
The Empty Man is awesome.
Yeah. I've seen that movie so many times.
It's on Hulu.
It has screened for repertory screenings once at MoMA.
Oh, wow.
I was unable to attend. I want to book it so bad, but Disney has weird
There are
rules.
weird right stuff with putting Disney and Fox movies out.
Yes, and it is also about
I would love to
Disney doesn't let you do repertory screenings if you do current screenings.
So like simultaneously, you mean?
Yeah.
Like
so
you have to set the whole day aside.
It has to be a repertory theater that only does repertory in order to book.
All the time or just that day?
All the time. Like it is really complicated to book from Disney.
Yeah, that's I don't.
So for that reason, like MoMA can show it.
MoMA can do it,
but nobody's ever going to be able to screen The Empty Man.
Yeah,
and I know because I
are constantly trying to screen The Empty Man.
Like I do some hosting at Alamo, and I've done some programming there, and it is at the top of my list.
Yeah,
every time. And I get told you can't do that.
Yeah. But I feel like that movie got so unfairly memory hold, but it's a great time.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful one to put on the list.
Yeah.
Empty Man, anytime.
Yeah.
But you have some stuff to plug.
I do. I mean, it's the film festival, which we talked about a little at the front.
Yeah.
So I run the Unnamed Footage Festival. We are what we call in-world camera film fest in San Francisco.
Did you guys invent that term?
Yes, we did.
That's a very good way to put it. Yes.
Because we show movies where, I don't know, the camera is diegetic, I think is the best way to kind of put it.
You're trying to avoid using a more common term.
Found footage horror.
Yes.
And the reason is because we don't only show found footage horror. Mm-hmm. We also show mockumentary, which we often call faux documentary because we don't want people to think we're showing comedies when they're not funny.
Yeah.
But mock actually refers to the format, not to the tone. The tone. Yes, but people get confused about it. Everybody thinks that Christopher Guest is the only one who makes mockumentaries. We show first person point of view films. Like if you've ever seen Maniac, the remake with Elijah Wood, almost all the movie is through his eyeballs.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Okay.
That is also a fucked up movie. So if you want more fucked up stuff, Maniac, watch it.
Cool.
Fucked up stuff with mom relationships, Maniac. And screen life is the other genre that we really focus on.
Okay.
Which is anything done from a computer screen.
So like Unfriended.
Unfriended is the big title.
Is the big
yeah.
touching point.
So we are showing, I think we've got 20 blocks, and it's like 17 movies, 17 feature films of these genres from all around the world. Including the world premiere of Horror in the High Desert 3. Mm-hmm. And like we're showing a Russian screen life film called Blue Whale that kind of disappeared due to some censorship issues, but we got it. It's very exciting. And then we've got like a live investigative podcast performance, which is about a mall that had a giant aquarium that a kid drilled into, and it flooded and killed a bunch of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That really happened.
Oh, wow.
That's the premise. I'm winking.
Okay.
I'm not good at winking.
I feel like, yes, never mind. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that.
Seeing it on the news.
It happened. And then I do a power hour on like for our opening night party, which it's called the Don't Stop Recording Power Hour. Mm-hmm. It is 60-minute long clips. All pulled from, this genre and reality TV and social media. And at the end of each clip you drink. It's really fun. Yeah. It's like really rowdy, and we supply the booze. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So come to that. Yeah. It is in San Francisco. The festival is primarily at the Balboa Theater and the 4-Star Theater, but our opening night party is at ATA, and we are doing a 10th anniversary screening of As Above, So Below at the Alamo Drafthouse. But yeah, just search Unnamed Footage Festival.
Yeah, that all sounds like
it's our best year ever. I'm so excited.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I wish you could come.
Yeah, me too.
We are in New York.
Yes, we are in New York.
Far away.
That being said,
and also come to the Astoria Horror Club.
Yes, thank you. The reason we initially connected is because I'm in Astoria, and I'm like, cool, great. Something that I don't have to take a 90-minute train ride to get to. Mm-hmm. Always advocating, come to Astoria. It's, what's your guys' next screening? Do you know yet?
No. No? We might be showing Near Dark. I know we're showing, actually by the time this airs, I know how to talk about podcasts.
Yes.
It'll probably be Near Dark.
Yeah, I love Near Dark.
I want to wait until we're in the backyard. So we do it in a bar called Heart of Gold. The first and third Monday of every month is our typical schedule. And the bar has like a beer garden in the back. And so when it's warm, we're out there. So I want to wait until it's warm enough that we can be in the backyard for Near Dark.
That'd be perfect.
I know. I think it's going to have a big turnout, and it's such a good movie.
I love Near Dark.
Yeah.
But that being said, this has been Bad First Impression. You can find us on all socials at BFI Pod. Please follow us, like, review, and rate. I'm also great at talking about podcasts, so I know all the terms to use.
You use them good.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to rate, review, and follow, and hit the little bell up in the corner so that you can get notifications for when we have new posts come up. If you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, shoot us a message on Instagram, any other social medias, or you can email us at mailbag@bfipod.com. And as always, I've been your host, Devin Warner. You can find me on social media at WhatIfDevin. And until next time, there are not a ton of great quotes from this movie that I can think of to send us out on. Do you have I'm trying to remember a line from this movie right now. The dialogue is not the focus.
She does recite the Asimov robot rules.
Which are
the slave will never do anything to harm their master. How's that?
So until next time, we will never do anything to harm master. Bye, y'all.
Perfect.
Bye.